I want to welcome you to Good Earth State Park at Blood Run, and I want to welcome all of our Indigenous brothers and sisters. Welcome home. Today we gather in this special place of historic friendship and peace to dedicate for all people this wonderful Good Earth State Park Visitor Center. It is a special honor for me to welcome to the podium Larry Wright Jr., Chairman of the Omaha Tribe of Nebraska, who will provide us with the opening blessing of this historic legacy occasion. I would ask that if those of you who are seated, just stay seated. Those of you who are standing, I can't offer you a chair. So with that, would you welcome, please, Larry Wright Jr.
Thank you for inviting me to be here today. It's good to see our tribal relatives here that are here to join us. And in our way, I say, please forgive me for speaking in front of my tribal elders that are here. Wakanda, dena da han udani, ombade, kodaite, wiblahan shirade, shirego ombide gatite, wiblahan shirade, ponkangale bluga da han wagilaga, nionshinga ishage, waonshinga edilagi, da han wagilaga, wakhanekti, ombide, wiblistuba, wibli, hijubabli, deblon. Adon nionshinga ishage, waonshinga edilagi, da han wagilaga. Great Spirit, we thank you for this day. We thank you for bringing each and every one of us here in a good way. We thank all those that helped make this day possible, this visitor center, protecting this area, the Majon Uda, the Good Earth, Blood Run here, that was home to our people, and all those that come to this place, and all of our ancestors that never left this area. Watch over each and every one that comes here, and come here in a good way, and good heart, open mind to experience all the things that this place offered our people, and all the things that it will offer future generations moving forward. We ask that you bless each and every one that helped make this possible, put in the hard work, those tribal individuals that help make this possible, and all those that work with them, listen to them. We thank you for those things. We thank all the efforts that help make this day possible. Watch over each and every one that's here in their travels home. Gatega, Wiblahan, Sheno.
Thank you, Chairman Wright. I'm pleased to introduce some special guests and program participants that are, we were going to say, sitting up here on the stage. We're not sitting up on the stage, but if you'll just sort of wait, we'll have further introductions a little bit later as they make a couple of presentations. First, of course, the Honorable Dennis Dugard, Governor of South Dakota, and First Lady Linda Dugard. Again, we want to thank you so much for your opening blessing, Larry Wright Jr., Chairman of the Omaha Tribe of Nebraska. Thank you so much, Larry. For the closing prayer that we will hear later is Kelvin Harlan with the Omaha Tribe. Kelvin, thank you for being with us. Also, we have Kathy Peterson, Chairperson of the South Dakota Game Fish and Parks Commission. You have to wave now. There you go, Kathy. Karen Gunderson Olson, who is President of the South Dakota Parks and Recreation Foundation. Callie Hepler, Secretary of the Department of Game Fish and Parks. Katie Sorrell, Parks and Recreation Division Director of the South Dakota Game Fish and Parks. Dr. Dave Kapaska, who is Chairman of the Board of the Sioux Falls Area Chamber of Commerce, and I'm sorry about your flight, wasn't able to get out, but I'm certainly glad that you came here. Thank you. And none other and not least, as a quick introduction here, Jeff Schurslick, past chairman, member of the board of the South Dakota Parks and Wildlife Foundation, and someone I've been involved with quite a bit here for a little while. And I am, for whatever it's worth, Dick Brown, development director for the South Dakota Parks and Wildlife Foundation. And so with that, yeah. For those of you, I am ordinarily just Sue Brown salesman. She would say, don't delay and wait for that applause, so fine. We're trying to be flexible here. Would you please join me in welcoming to the podium Jeff Schurslick, member of the board, South Dakota Parks and Wildlife Foundation.
Stuff up here. Well, welcome. Wow, quite a place, huh? Mother Nature wasn't so nice to us, but I looked at those as tears of joy. That's how special she thinks this place is. Welcome, Governor Dukard and Linda, fellow philanthropists, GF&P folks, Parks and Wildlife Foundation folks, Native peoples, and fellow citizens. It's my pleasure today to speak for a moment and give you a little bit of a history on how we got here and this site. It's a study and a public-private partnership that's been in the making for 4.5 decades. And I'm going to give you a little bit of the timeline, and I'm going to try to thank some of the key people that have really made this happen. I won't be able to get to everybody, but I'll do my best. This site had been inhabited from about 1200 to 1700 by the Oneida people, which was part of the Omaha, Ponca, Iowa, and Odo tribes. It was a trade center, and pipestone was its key currency. And it was a non-nomadic people. Something that we didn't really get, taught when we were young. And up to 10,000, they believe up to 10,000 Native Americans and tribes lived here during its peak. Following that time, we don't know exactly what happened, but we know by 1750 or so, they had moved on. And yet, in late 1880s, Richard Pettigrew, who all of you know, is our first settlement, and his brother mapped the area for posterity and history, and you can see a depiction of his map right around the corner and part of the depiction in the museum. Now I'm going to talk about the public-private partnership that has made this become a reality over the last 4.5 decades. The public side started in 1970 when the National Park Service designated this as a historically significant site. That started it. 17 years later, the folks on the Iowa side, the private side of the State Historical Society of Iowa, purchased the first 200 acres to set aside to start the idea of a collaborative state park. That was followed by a public-private effort started by Doug Hofer, who you're going to find out is the Peter Norbeck of Good Earth State Park, and John Timmer, who joined us today, a state legislator in the late 80s, mid to late 80s, and they made an effort to try to get things going on the South Dakota side. However, it would be 30 years of Doug's vision before we got to this point today. In 1995, so we had 70, 87, about 87 again. In 1995, the public and private came together again. The South Dakota Department of Game, Fish, and Parks and the partnership with Forward Sioux Falls purchased the first 205 acres of this Good Earth State Park on the South Dakota side. And again, when you talk about it and you start seeing the names, you had Governor Jankel, you had Dennis McFarland, who was part of our board, the South Dakota Parks and Wildlife Board, and you'll see a familiar name. Dick Brown was the head of the chamber at that point, which was the Forward Sioux Falls arm, and again, they started to try to get something going out here in 1995. Fast forward from there to 2000. And then it was a special meeting between Doug Hofer and Buzz Nelson, who owned the 300 and some acres right here that this land, or that we stand on today. And Buzz was in the first session today. And you know, they really came together, and Doug told Buzz of the vision, and Buzz said, I think we can put something together. And basically, without Buzz here, but it was Doug and Buzz that were really the key to bringing Good Earth, to the vision of Good Earth, to make it happen. So before I go any further, I really do want to give a special applause to Doug Hofer and Buzz Nelson, who's no longer here, because they were the ones that really made it happen. Now, things only move at a certain pace. And so it wasn't until 2010 that original kind of plan, there was a purchase agreement put together with Buzz in 2009, and now we had to figure out a way to pay for it, basically. And so the South Dakota, I was fortunate enough to become the president of the South Dakota Parks and Wildlife Foundation in 2010, and it was at a time where they wanted to remake the foundation a little bit and make it that powerful private fundraising arm, because we understood that to make things great, you needed a public-private partnership. It can't just be the public, it can't be just the private, it's a joint effort. And at that same time, we were fortunate enough to hire Dick and Sue Brown to be our development team. So, Parks and Wildlife Foundation, the vision of the parks, the idea of putting together a public-private partnership, now we were out to raise $5 million to buy this special Good Earth. And the goal on a private basis was $1.5 million. But to build that, or to raise that kind of money, and to get the state involved, it took some time. So we started by going out and kind of telling the story. We were at a tourism meeting where we told the idea of the future and what it could mean to South Dakota. Following that meeting, John Timmer, who was on this site back in the 80s as a legislator, came to me about a month after the meeting and came into my office, and he handed me this partially completed pipestone pipe that he found on the site when he was touring it back in the 80s. And he told me it was special, and he said, Jeff, I hand this pipe to you, and I'm counting on you to drive this thing and get her done. And so I've been holding on to this pipe for the last 7 years, and when things weren't always going quite so good or whatever, I'd rub that magic pipe, and basically he said get her done, and that's what we worked on. But it took many, many more years. In 2011, myself, Doug, at that time Jeff Blanc, the head of the Game Fish and Park, met the legislature and said, guys and gals, we got a great vision, we got a great opportunity to open a state park in the future. We're going to go out and raise the private funds, but we need you to come up with $500,000 as part of the contributions with the federal dollars and etc. At that time, the economy wasn't so strong, but we had a great advocate in Governor Dugard in the governor's office. And Governor Dugard had visited this site. He'd been around, he'd kayaked and canoed down the river. And he saw our vision, and he saw the potential. And he got behind us, and at that point, we were able to get the legislature to approve their $500,000. And then Dick and I and other folks in the foundation went out to work on the $1.5 million part of it from the private side. And this was pretty early, folks. This was 2011. It was a vision. It was a plan on a piece of paper. No idea that we would get to this point at that time. And there was a small group of 7 families and 4 organizations within a very short period of time that we were able to raise $1.5 million. The key folks were behind that were the Miles and Lisa Beacom family, Dana and LaDawn Dykehouse family, the Helmsley Trust via the Stingleys, and the other folks that came forward with the $1.5 million. And in December of 2011, we consummated the purchase of the key land from Buzz Nelson to get the process really moving forward. 2012 to present, the public-private partnership proceeded to gather dollars of state dollars, federal dollars, and private dollars to create our public-private partnership and raise over $17 million to buy the land, to build the trail systems, to do this beautiful visitor center, and that happened over the next 5 years. And again, within that, if you take a look back at the donor wall, those are the private individuals that stepped up with their treasure to raise to provide over $8 million to make this all a reality. Moving forward from there, we were able to, in October 2012, we had a meeting. Governor Dugard called a meeting with our neighbor, Governor Branstad, and said, guys, let's pull this together. Let's figure out how to create a collaborative state park. So we got on the site with Governor Dugard, Governor Branstad. We toured the site. We talked about creating this vision of a collaborative state park, only the second of such that would exist in the United States. And Dennis, being a man of action, pushed that forward. And in January, he also not only pushed forward with the idea that to make this the first state park in 40 years, the 13th state park, but I look out there and I'm going to say the first state park of our generation. But in addition to that, he went in and said, I'll come up with another $2 million if you guys go raise more dollars from the private sector. And that was really the impetus to make this visitor center become a reality. And so we had the $2 million challenge. And then in February of that year, we also dedicated, and the legislature passed this as the first state park, or the 13th state park in South Dakota. At the same time, to fund the public side, we needed to find, I guess, somebody that would really step up to help match that $2 million. And that was the Bob and Rita Ellman family. And they stepped up. They became the largest contributor to the project. And, you know, that came from a meeting with Candy Hansen, who all you know from the Sioux Falls Area Community Foundation, and the idea of pulling good projects together with people that have great ideas. So we raised additional money. And soon we dedicated the park in July 19, 2013 as the 13th state park. Following that in 2014, we weren't done. We had more money to raise. And at the same time, available came the beautiful entry that you came in, the 42 acres that allows us to have a separate entry coming into Good Earth State Park. The public-private partnership wasn't done yet. More to come, more money to raise. And again, what comes along is Spring Creek Golf Course. They were going to build more houses on the view shed. We knew this was a special place. There's already homes out here, but we were trying to save more and more land. And because of the visionary Mark Bueller and David Long, David Long's family, who was the land of Spring Creek, we were able to strike a deal in June 2015 to acquire 200 plus acres of Spring Creek to make over 800 acres on the South Dakota side for what will become a collaborative state park, but just adds to our Good Earth State Park on the South Dakota side. Again, we needed a major funder. We had been asking a lot of people for money, but again, that number kept moving from $1.5 million to $3.5 million to $4.5 million to $5 million, and kept going. And up stepped Richard Ellman with the James and Eloise Ellman Foundation to come forward to help consummate the deal on the Spring Creek land, to add to the vision of this park for the future generations. With that, we were really off and running. Design, construction, fundraising continued. We found another major gift from George Searle to put us over the $8 million number. And that brings us to today. It brings us to the dedication of this beautiful educational visitor center and park. The timeline shows that there was numerous public-private interfaces who came together to make this become a reality. And really today, my job is to thank everybody. Governor Dugard, Governor Branstad, the numerous private donors that I hope that you'll look at back there, because those people came up with their private treasure. The Game Fish and Parks, the Parks and Wildlife Foundation, do need to mention our Executive Director, Wayne Winter, has done a great job there too to help keep us on task. Whoa. Landowners, Doug Hofer, the Peter Norbeck of Good Earth State Park, Dick and Sue Brown, who really put their heart and soul into the fundraising and made this become a possibility. I want to thank the media because you've been a partner with us all the way along to keep the momentum and to help get us to where we are. I want to thank the native tribes who contributed the story because it's their families that we're here to really honor. This is a special place. And when you go in to see the film and you go into the museum, you'll really find out the story that we'll be able to tell for generations and generations. And lastly, I'm here to thank all of you, the citizens of South Dakota, because this is a South Dakota project that's become real. And with that, I only can say thank you. And we went from let's get her done to that we got her done. Thank you, everybody. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce my friend Dennis. You know, again, we talked about a private-public partnership. And if we didn't have that strong public person that believed in this and had the passion that could champion that side of the cause, from Doug Hofer to Dennis Dugard, we wouldn't be here today. So it's my pleasure to introduce our governor, Dennis Dugard.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you all for being here. I want to first begin by recognizing another special guest that's with us today, Senator Tim Johnson and his wife Barb. Give a wave right up here. It is an honor today to be with you all to help dedicate the Good Earth State Park Visitor Center. Today really marks a crowning achievement of this long, persistent and determined effort that Dick Brown and Jeff Schurslick and Doug Hofer and so many others, and many of you, helped make a reality. It started many, many years ago. In fact, this day is significant because of what happened so many centuries ago when groups of Native American tribes would gather here. The Oneota culture is the groups that would gather here and started that culture of a thriving community. And those tribes used this place to meet and trade and share, and they chose this area because of the river, the abundant wildlife, the fertile floodplains. And they also came because of the availability of pipestone and to gather for seasonal ceremonies. Truly a special place. A few centuries later then, more recently, the first seeds of Good Earth State Park were sown when in 1970 a portion of this historical site in Iowa and South Dakota was designated Blood Run National Historic Landmark. And then, as was mentioned, in the 1980s, John Timmer stressed the need in a legislative resolution to preserve this place as an important part of our history. And then, as Jeff described, the first concrete step toward Good Earth State Park was in 1975 when the state of South Dakota, with financial help from Forward Sioux Falls, purchased the Dr. Watson property, which is north of the Spring Creek Golf Course, south of this location. And since then, several landowners have stepped forward. And Jeff mentioned, of course, Buzz and Lois Nelson, whose parcel of over 300 acres really was the momentum that we needed to add to the Watson property. And then Dave Decker, whose land along the Sioux River connected the two properties because they were not connected to one another. Then we had a contiguous parcel. And then Louise Evenson and her husband Paul. Much of the property within the park today was homesteaded by Louise's great-grandfather, Peter Lohman. So we've had many, many parcels and many, many families who were involved in making this contiguous parcel of the park. And then finally, Darwin Albers, who provided critical acres for parking out here and a buffer for the new visitor center. If not for that land, we would be squeezed right up against the edge, right up against the border of our property. And now we've got a land where we've got parking and the beautiful meandering drive that you took to enter the park. And of course, as Jeff said, To our great delight, the Spring Creek Golf Course property became available and is under contract, and the golf course will continue to be used as a course for 8 more years as part of the agreement, and then at that point it will become part of the park. In total, as Jeff mentioned, 800 acres on our side of the river adds a little over 800 acres actually, and then that adds to the 200 acres that Iowa has on the other side of the river in Lyon County. We owe each one of the landowners who participated, who voluntarily and willingly sold their property for this wonderful park. We owe them our thanks. So let's give the landowners a round of applause. I also want to thank Todd Kofeld. Todd, are you here? Where's Todd? From the, maybe he's not here. Anyway, he's the chief of the Iowa State Parks Bureau. He joined us and worked with our state on this project. And it was the state of Iowa, as was mentioned earlier, who bought the first parcel. After this historical designation was made, Iowa stepped up and bought that first 200-acre parcel. Of course, we were a little late to the party, but we're much better at what we do. So we have 800 acres. Come on, Iowa, get up, get going. Get going here.
And a visitor.
In July of 2013, we were just over on that end of this native prairie. And I think some of it was soybean field back then, actually. And we had groundbreaking for the first state park here in 40 years when Governor Branstad joined us. I think he got a speeding ticket that day, or right around that time. I got to tease him about that. Anyway, during that time, or around that time, the legislature, and we have many legislators here today who were part of that vote to appropriate $2 million as a challenge that Jeff and Dick and others of you responded to mightily. Will the legislators that are here with us raise their hands? There's quite a few here in the crowd. Let's give the legislature a round of applause for their support. As Jeff mentioned, the response to that challenge certainly exceeded expectations. The response has multiplied those dollars nearly 5-fold and allowed for the expansion of the park by the 2 acres in the Spring Creek area, Spring Creek Golf, and of course created this world-class visitor center that we have here today. And following the dedication, I hope you'll take time to explore the interpretation or the interpretive exhibits. Take a look at the film. Linda and I had a chance to see the premiere of the film earlier this morning. It's really a great film and describes very well the property and the history and culture that makes this preservation so worthy. Many other thanks are in order, and I can't begin to name everyone, of course, but we wouldn't be here today if not for the many people that have contributed. Again, the legislature, wonderful support financially to this visitor center. I also want to thank the Parks and Wildlife Foundation for taking up the fundraising challenge and for hiring Dick and Sue Brown. What a good move that was. If you're involved in fundraising, if you're involved in fundraising, you know, and I said this morning earlier to some of the donors, there's one key reason why most people don't contribute to a good cause. And what's that reason? Nobody asks them. And Dick has been asking and asking, and so many of you have said yes. So it's really a wonderful thing. And I couldn't say how important Jeff Surslick's leadership has been. Another thing you learn in fundraising is that it's a lot harder to ask if you yourself are not invested. And Jeff and his family have been invested big time. I told this morning the story, and I'm going off script here, sorry Dick, we had the bid returned for this building, and we were over budget. We were quite a bit over budget. And so we looked at the things that we were going to have to cut and not be able to do, and Jeff said, let's get together and talk about this. So Jeff came to Pierre And we met with Doug Hofer and myself and Hunter Roberts in the governor's office there. And Jeff didn't just come with the problem, he came with his checkbook. He said, I'm going to give another $500,000 to this project if you will match it. Well, that's 100% return on state dollars. I don't know how you can turn that down. So we found the money, and that meant this granite on the interior, the granite on the exterior, the picnic shelter to the north of the building, the parking lot. The reason the road is paved, we wouldn't have been able to afford the paving of that road. So many things that make this visitor center first class were made possible by that extra gift. Of course, there have been many generous gifts, both large and small, from private citizens. Many of you, Lincoln County itself donated county support, local units of government in Sioux Falls, and tribal involvement has also been essential. You'll see in the story that's told in the film, many of the tribal representatives here are explaining the history and very credibly talking about their own ancestors. Tribal officials and elders from several tribes whose ancestors occupied this site for centuries contributed their expertise to the project, and they also helped design and produce the interpretive displays and, as I said, the film. And they demonstrated a sincere commitment to the preservation of the cultural history of this place. It is a beautiful nature we have here, a very beautiful natural site, but it's also a very fascinating and important cultural tradition. So I want to thank some of the tribes. We've got some that traveled a long distance. We have members of the Oto tribe. Would you please stand? Members of the Oto tribe that are here. Welcome. We have members of the Iowa tribe, all the way from, some of them from Oklahoma and Kansas. Would you stand, members of the Iowa tribe? Back here, right here. Also the Ponca tribe, our neighbors in Nebraska. Members of the Ponca tribe here. And of course, Larry Wright is the chairman of that tribe. And then the Omaha tribe, also our neighbors in Nebraska. Omaha tribe members here. Last but not least, I want to say thanks to the Game Fish and Parks Commission and the Department of Game Fish and Park staff. They've been working mightily for well over a year to get this site preserved, get the trails built, get the overlooks built, get the signage and the interpretive displays, get this building built. It's just one thing after another they've done, and at every turn I see a first-class job, a first-rate job. The department has dedicated significant financial and human resources to bring us where we are. I want to specifically recognize Doug Hofer. For decades, Doug Hofer has been working on this project. And Doug, please stand up, Doug. Thank you. Over 25 years, Doug's been working this hard. I have every confidence that the staff here at Good Earth State Park will continue to make this experience at this location the best ever, and that visitors, both young and old, are going to have an enjoyable and meaningful experience when they come here. Thanks to all the work. Thanks to everyone I've mentioned today and many others who I did not. Forgive me. But future generations will get to walk among nature as the people before them did. And they'll know the story of this place, this Good Earth. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you, Linda, for being with us today. We have indeed been, all of us, on an honorable journey of respect and dignity for many years, some for centuries, in this unique space. And I would just, before I call on Kelvin Harlan to come up, just to give Dave Kapasco a little warning. that because we're now inside and we're not transferring from point A to point B, when we're finished with the formal meeting, I'd like to have you come up on behalf of the chamber, make some comments, and then we'll take a picture. And I do have the plaque here Amy brought, so I know you're just still off your plane, so we appreciate that. So to get back on focus here, I just want to give you a little warning. It's a special honor for me to welcome to the podium Kelvin Harlan of the Omaha Tribe. Oops, are we okay? Let's just hold on 1 second. Can we have at least a chair? The knee? We have plenty of wonderful assistants. I think her ankle may have given out. We'll see. That's why Dr. Kapaska is here. That's helpful. For those of you that can't see in the back, you can take a deep breath. We're going to be fine. Just be a little patient here, and we'll be back with things. Okay, David? Okay. We'll look to the doc. If he gives a thumbs up, thumbs are up. And any assistance that we need to provide. My brother Al is there. He'll tell me. Now you know she's going to feel about this. Let's give her a round of applause for being here. Thank you. So with that, again, I'll repeat, it is my special honor to call to the podium Kelvin Harlan of the Omaha Tribe to provide the closing prayer and comments. Would you please welcome Kelvin Harlan.
Boy, that's quite a climb up here. I'm surprised. No, I wanted to express myself here with a few words to my native relatives. All my relatives, I want to say thank you to you for being here, and that you've come from a long ways, near and far. You're here, and means all my relatives, all my relations, not only my relations that are here, but the spirits of my relations that are out there in this land. So I wanted to say all my relations as I address you today. We've covered so many things. We've covered the western side of how this building came to be, how this park came to be. I wanted to briefly give you a quick synopsis of the name Good Earth. Our native people pronounce it Mojon Ud, good land, good earth. And some years ago, with Governor Dugart's assistance, we were asked to present a name that would cover all tribes, that would mean the same thing with all tribes, and Good Earth came. But where that name came from was our ceremonies, one of our ceremonies back home. One of my clan grandmothers had lost her companion about 6 months previous. And she came to me and asked me to say a prayer, to go into ceremony and pray, because she was lonesome. And so I told her that we would be able to do that. And so when we went into the ceremony, I explained to her what had been taught to me and what's been taught to all the tribes people. We have a belief, much like the Christian Western faiths have. And in our belief, it is that when we pass on, we don't go upstairs or we don't go downstairs. We go home. That means that we're going to go home to that good earth, that good land. And so I came up here the next day for a meeting, and they asked about the names. And I said, what about Good Earth? And I explained that. And lo and behold, it was a selection that was made for this park today. So in that, I'm not only honored, I'm very humbled that they would take that name, because that name resonates with all tribes. We all have that belief. And so there's a spiritual connection here for all of us that come here, Native people. And I know many of you feel that when you walk on this land out here. That means that you're walking on Mother Earth out here. You get that connection. You feel that meaning. You feel it within. And it's a very powerful thing. So our elders are still here, and they're looking down on us today, and they're saying that this is good. So I wanted to share that name with you to explain from the Native perspective where that came from and how much it means to us as Native people that we go home to that good earth, and this is good earth today. So thank you for listening. And with that, my relatives, my elders, I'm going to say the closing prayer here as I've been asked. I ask that you all bear with me. I'm going to start in my language. Aho, dadiho wakanda. Wakanda kube wanire. Wada edada ebe pahashta. Wazeda atada greho. Wada omba te ura dashkaka ko wibdaho. Wada ashtak noji egamo shon. Este udaho dadiho wakanda. Wibdaho rae to that to dadiho. Wada Nashikeda ahiga atiho dadiho wakanda. Wada mojon ude dash ongatiho dadiho. Lao de go wongi de ho dadiho wakanda dwam nashingam monitama dwade. Usi dise ahiga gacha tamaho dadiho wakanda. Da on the wongi de takiwa rae to that to dadiho wakanda. Kanda kube wanide wada edada. Edi pahashta wazeda atada dadiho. Father God, we come to you this hour of the day. We ask that you look down upon this park, this place here, this sacred place to our people. We ask that you continue to bless it. We ask that you continue to hold your hand over this and make it sacred and keep it that way for all of us, for generations to come. We thank you for the gift of all of these people that came here today, those that spoke up here, those that gave thanks to everybody for making this possible for all of us today, that we come here and that in generations to come, our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren can come here. This is a part of what it is that we strive to do to protect and preserve this land here, the sacred land that has so much meaning to us as Native people. Father God, we come to you like this, and we ask that you bless each and every one that's here. Bless their families. We ask that you bless their homes, that you take care of their children, their grandchildren, that you fill their homes with love and good things, positivity like that. As we prepare to make our leave here, as we prepare to go back to our lives and to our world like that, we ask that you make that road good for us, that our journeys always be good, that each and every day we come to praise and glorify you through our words, through our feelings like that. Be with us this way, watch over us and guide us. Be with us like that. Amen. Aho.
Thank you, Kelvin, for those wonderful remarks and the closing prayer. At this time, we're going to move a little bit into the ribbon cutting because we're all here. Don't move. And part of that would be to welcome Dr. David Kapaska, Chairman of the Board of the Sioux Falls Area Chamber of Commerce, to provide a few remarks. We may do kind of a formal statement up here. I know it's always obligatory to read this as Chairman of the Board. So, but then when that's done, don't please anyone that's up here. We're going to take some pictures, and then the second picture is going to be anyone else that wants to be in the picture, and the third picture is going to be anybody else that wants to be in the picture.